seconds remaining.
Alright, folks, here we are at the RedBull ECL 2013, the first game of Group D. We did have a game scheduled a little bit earlier this evening, but unfortunately, we did have a no-show. MX was not able to fill up their team, and so Rattlesnakes did receive the default win. They rise to 1-0 in the group. This is a group stage composed of 6 teams in each group. We have played through groups A, B, and C already. Now we head up into Group D. Group D, the favorites, of course, Rattlesnake, getting off to a good start with that default victory. But the question becomes, who will actually secure second place? And so today we'll sort of start taking a look at that. I'm your caster today, Vikramon. Joining me is my friend El Presidente. How are you doing, my friend?
Man, it has been a long, long time since we've casted together.
It has. That's true. You've been doing Canada Cup, I think. How's that been going?
We've been, anyway, John and I have been doing that. We make more jokes than actual casting sometimes.
Well, that's not too bad.
No, it's not. It's always a lot of fun. Whenever there's actual analysis, we do it though. Arctic looking very strong though.
Yeah, they've been really on an upswing. They won Big Point Battle yesterday, I think. They've been doing well in Canada Cup. They've been doing really well in the ADL as well. Honestly, this team's on the rise.
Yeah, they 2-0 swept Fnatic, so they're looking very strong. But wow, strong. But that is European and American Dota. This is Chinese and Southeast Asian Dota. I haven't heard of either of these teams, have you?
So I don't know the teams. I have seen some of these players. I've been casting and observing a little bit of CDEC, the Chinese in-house league that recently got set up by some of the LGD management and others. And I've seen some of these players in the CDEC. Also, wHut, the drafter captain of Ogura, I don't know how to pronounce this, Yui, I guess?
I think it's Yui.
Yui. So wHut I've seen play. I know she plays... she stood in for R-Stars, actually, last week. Rising Stars, I think they cut Mofi, or Mofi quit the team. So they were using stand-ins, and she played the third position for them, and also first and second position in CDEC. And I've seen a couple of these other players in CDEC as well, but not the teams as a collective. And I think that's actually one of the nice things about this league, is that we're seeing sort of a lot of these new teams put through their paces a little bit, seeing how they stand up to, you know, the best Chinese teams and to each other.
Yeah, so far the picks, though, seem very, very standard, and I'm actually completely shocked by the sudden rise of OD, even in the Chinese scene, because that was really kind of a Quantic staple, but I'm surprised how quickly he ended up taking place as a popular solo mid.
Yeah, he's really, really expanded. There was a while in which basically the only person in the world who would play Outworld Devourer was Mushi, and nobody else would sort of go near the hero. And then all of a sudden we see, Quantic popularizing it a bit, and he really expands out into a lot. Mushi still plays him. We saw him play him just the other day, but a lot of other teams have picked him up as well. What do you think about this early Alchemist selection from wHut, which is what I'll call them?
What? While I like Alchemist as a hero, I don't think he really needs to be picked up super early. He's very rarely going to get banned, which, you know, isn't too surprising when you have such a large carry pool these days. But that said, he's still a very strong hero. The Unstable Concoction, very powerful damage output, as well as a long 4-second stun, provided they aren't BKB and you charge it right. We have seen him played in a multitude of ways, from support Alchemist, which is always interesting to see, solo mid, as well as the farming Alchemist, so he's a very flexible hero as well. So even this early pick doesn't really reveal too much from their draft. The clockwork is actually a little bit more telegraphed. It basically means here's our offlaner,
sure,
or very rarely a tri-lane farmer.
That's true, and we have seen a mid as well sometimes. Teams like Tongfu run the mid clockwork sometimes. Mu has done very, very well on that, but without knowing too much more about what, we can't really conjecture. The one thing is, because they pick 2 heroes that are almost certainly cores, in the Chinese scene, we don't typically see Clockwork or Alchemist run in the support role. There's a few players in the Western scene that like to run these heroes support, but not really in the Chinese scene. So that means that they have to secure supports up in the second pick phase, of course. With this 6.78 style of 2-2-1, you have an entire separate ban phase before your third pick comes. And OguraYui used that to take out Leshrac, and they took out Nyx and Visage in the first phase. So actually a lot of supports already locked out for what? What do you think they actually go for now?
Well, Shadow Demon for one, he still made it through the pool.
Sure.
I don't know how popular Bane is again in the Chinese scene. Possibly. Yep. There's the Rubik
I
pick
like
as
the
well.
Rubik.
Yeah, and there's already a lot to steal. Namely, just anything Gyrocopter has.
Yeah. I like both of these support pickups. I mean, I honestly think Rubik a little better for wHut and Shadow Demon a little better for Ogura because, of course, Shadow Demon Disruption is quite strong against Alchemist when he's in Chemical Rage form, simply because you generate very, very powerful illusions. Not quite as strong against Gyrocopter, frankly. And Rubik, meanwhile, lots of stuff that he can steal heal. Now the Demonic Purge from Shadow Demon, Call Down, Illusory Wall, Surge is fantastic. Lots of spells for this Rubik to prey upon if executed correctly.
Yeah, and then on top of that, for wHut, they can now kind of both sides, I guess, are going to be vying for that Lina support here if they want to run a more aggressive lane. But that said, Cuddle's still available as well. So if you want to run a little bit more defensive, you do have that option for
Sure.
both sides.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that it's probably going to be another support selection for wHut here. They do have the option of picking up, I mean, actually, whatever, honestly. They could still get a safe laner. They could still get another off laner. They could even get a carry if they wanted to. But they have... Sorry, they could even get a mid, I mean. But I think they can just leave their options open, take a support here. Maybe the Lina, who's available and synchronizes quite well with Rubik and Alchemist in a dangerous stun-based tri-lane. Or Jakiro does just as well in that respect.
Yeah, Jakiro's an interesting hero. He has some... Oh, okay. Okay, Ogura... Are they going to run dual mid? That's the question. Do they run dual mid up against wHut, or do they go for a tri-lane built around Kunkka? Personally, I think the dual mid is a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
Just because, there's less likely to be support to really keep you off of that kill
Right.
in a dual mid scenario. That said, with the Jakiro picked up by wHut, that gives them some really long-range initiation using that Ice Path. And that makes it very easy to set up things like the Unstable Concoction as well as Telekinesis. And I totally missed the Slark ban like that. I actually can't believe that got banned here. I didn't think either side would be very willing to pick that up in this particular matchup, just because there's not really much to use against wHut with that, especially with the Batrider ban, which is Slark's principal pick.
Yeah. But without wHut securing that strong of a mid just yet, there are heroes. I mean, right now, if they ran either Clockwork or Alchemist mid, Slark's pretty good against both those heroes, actually, in that matchup. So it's definitely an interesting ban, but I feel like Ogura's still got a pretty good lineup here. I agree with you. If they just use their 5th pick to secure a nice support for the Gyrocopter, somebody very, very protective and defensive for him, they've got 2 lanes that I think they'll essentially feel very comfortable in. And even Darkseer, I mean, one of the best off laners, can always duck into the jungle if he's having trouble. The Kunkka Shadow Demon mid is going to be extremely difficult to deal with just one remaining pick for wHut. There's very few heroes that they could take that I think would actually be okay against this duel. Maybe Puck, I guess? Do you have any other thoughts?
Puck would definitely be on the top of my list. The DK ban is interesting, but I really doubt wHut would do that against a dual mid. I was just thinking that Ogura could actually pick up the Bane, run dual mid with Kunkka Bane, and then use the Shadow Demon as a defensive support for the Gyrocopter, and that would actually work a lot better for their dual mid options. But the Weaver is going to be what's last pickup, and that's going to be a real difficulty to lock down for Ogura.
Yeah, they don't have that much they can deal with it. Of course, the X marks the spot will help quite a bit, I feel. But this might be the game. Actually, I was about to say this might be a good game for that Lincoln's Weaver, but they do have a Gyrocopter, which gives Weaver conniptions when he goes for Lincoln's, and you just get it immediately popped by the homing missile. So I'm not sure. The other question for me, Alprez, is how exactly do wHut lane this? It feels like they have so many possible configurations, though. Do we have Clockwork middle, Weaver hard, and the Alchemist tri-lane safe, or...?
Well, for what I'm thinking is that they really have to run Weaver against their dual mid, if they're running a dual mid. That's a big if, because we really don't know what Ogura are planning. But if a dual mid is happening, Weaver is by far their best option, just because even if you get the Disruption off, even if you get the Torrent, it's still possible for Weaver to get the Shikuchi off between the 2 abilities in the small gap. Right? And if that were to happen, the follow-up from Ogura kind of vanishes.
That's a great point, yeah.
So Weaver gets away. If it was against Clockwork, Clockwork would be dead. He has no way of running away from that. He might be able to get cogs down in time, but that's like a really nasty gamble.
It is. And the Lina for Ogura, and that actually I feel like it opens up their lanes a bit as well. They do have the option of running a tri-lane around either the Kunkka or the Gyrocopter, frankly, and sending the other to the mid. I feel like Kunkka, actually a little bit of a stronger mid overall than Gyrocopter. He has slightly better defensive tools simply because he can stun whoever tries to approach him. But they could do either, and they could run a tri-lane with the other one, or they could just go with the dual mids that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I also agree that Kunkka's a little bit stronger in mid. I don't think it's really his defensive options, mostly because, if you try to dive a Gyrocopter, you're going to eat a face full of rocket barrage, but mostly because the Tidebringer is such a strong, harassing, and last-hitting tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is nice, but I'm kind of annoyed at myself. I was casting Premier League earlier, and I was getting horrible lag all day, and I was like, what is going on? And now it's completely smooth again, so...
Don't worry, I got the same issue when I was playing Dota, just like random 500 ping spikes, which isn't fun when you're playing solo mid.
Right. That is the worst position to have that in, actually. Yeah, maybe position 1, too, because you can't last hit. Alright, let's go ahead and introduce the teams. You want to take OguraYui?
Sure, I'll take Ogura. What we're going to see is YSY. Wow, this is like all going to be awful names, isn't it? YSY taking that offlane Darkseer, and the solo mid is Zex Bingo. I think that's right. On the Kunkka, we're going to be seeing a defensive tri-lane, very interesting, with Shana on the Lina. Will be taking the Shadow Demon, and then wHut playing that Gyrocopter.
Yep. Looking towards what? I have a much easier job. In fact, I gave myself this job so you would have a harder time.
It's all 3-syllable names with numbers. I personally think it's harder, actually.
Nah. ZZZ on the Weaver, YZB on the Rubik, 365 on Jakiro, 290 we'll say on the Alchemist, and 123 on the Clockwork. Now, I don't know if this is the same 123 that I saw playing for some teams last week, because... it's kind of a generic name. It's pretty easy to come up with 1, 2, 3 if you just randomly stab at your keyboard, so...
Man, this feels a lot like casting when, like, Extinct and KYXY and HYHY are all in, like, the same game somehow. It's like, you look at the names real quickly and you get them confused and you get upset. But yeah, so many numbers. But anyways, it's a really interesting lane configuration coming out of both sides. I would have thought... actually... I spoke too soon. Shadow Demon rotating mid. They're trying to get a kill on 290.
He's got haste rune, and Alchemist only has Acid Spray. Do they get the Torrent? Here it comes. They lift up the 290. He's taking a lot of damage. Tidebringer comes through. He's charging that Stable Concoction. Can he get the stun on 2? He gets it on just Will. Zex Bingo peeling off as well. So Alchemist actually, oh wow. If that Acid Spray had lived even a few moments longer, Shadow Demon might have been in a little bit of trouble. But instead, no First Blood, 290 survives, actually deals a little bit of damage coming back to Ogura. So the First Blood opportunity not quite coming through for them just yet, but a little bit of pressure already coming out.
Yeah, one of the big problems is that if they don't get an early bottle up on 290, which is actually going to come up right now because of that early Crowed regen, he's going to get harassed out of lane very easily. Oh, he's back.
Oh, they're back. There's the Surge. Torrent to come through. Lifts up the Alchemist once again. Nice Ice Path. Will it position them properly? Alchemist walks away again. This time with 19 health points to his credit, but still bruised but unbroken. The issue is, can he come back to this lane?
Yeah,
he's got his bottle. So
he's finally got his bottle, but it's like it's a real pain to deal with this, especially when you're also going to just get harassed down by the fact that Kunkka is just an absolute nightmare to lane against always.
So far, I mean, both teams doing okay. Just the fact that wHut didn't get first blooded, I think, puts them in better shape than they could be.
1, 2,
but
3.
yeah, now we have 1, 2, 3 in a little bit of trouble. There's finally the disruption as well as Soul Catcher. Lina using her spells. Rocket Barrage to do damage. It's getting deflected. No, not deflected enough. Shadow Demon for the first blood, and that puts Ogura up a little bit early on in this game.
Yeah, I kind of wish they put that onto wHut, but that is still going to be pretty much Ogura's wards for life there, so it's all going to even out in the end.
Whew. YSY barely clearing out the creep camp there, ending up at about 14 HP, but he's okay. I mean, he doesn't have to leave, he gets his level, and he uses Healing Salve to get back up. Are these lanes are wHut just going to have to sort of suffer through these lanes and do the best they can and hope to scale, or do you think there's something they can do to try to rotate?
I think they really just got to deal with this, but 290 is taking an extreme amount of damage here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even just the Tidebringer harassment is doing a lot of damage to this Alchemist. And 365 now on almost a semi-permanent role here as his helper. The Jakiro just hanging around. Even YZB rotating over. I don't think they've spotted him just yet, so maybe they could try to lure Zex Bingo into a bad situation. He uses Torrent. Here comes YZB, but he's shown himself. He's been seen on the low ground now, so Kunkka will just hang back. YSY hanging around as well, just in case they need a little bit of oomph to protect the Kunkka. The good news for wHut? ZZZ farming very well. He's 23 for 7 at less than 4 minutes. He's doing well for himself. This Weaver, we'll have to see what build he goes for. He's carrying around a lot of gold right now, but he could go somewhat offensive, and I feel like it would give them a lot of damage to try to tip the scales early.
Oh, wHut
Oh,
almost
wow.
dying again just to Kunkka. That's definitely not the kind of position you want to be in. That's just the power of the Tidebringer.
Absolutely, and 365 now in a lot of trouble. Disruption, Soul Catcher, Light Strike to follow, perfect coordination. Here comes the Dragon Slave, Kunkka to deal just a bit of damage as well, and once again, Will hogging all the kills to himself on the Shadow Demon. Just a very easy hero to get kills with as a support, and that'll put them up 2-0, and the other issue is, of course, 290. Yeah, he's taking a battering in this lane.
Yeah, it's just so hard to deal with Kunkka, and the problem is when you're getting harassed by Kunkka, it is unmitigated harass. It's not even like harass that you can deal with. It's like getting harassed by pure damage. That's the kind of nightmarish deal it is with Cleave, and it's difficult for anyone to deal with, except for that one bug that involves like stout shields blocking Cleave damage a little bit.
Right.
Which honestly is an item you should always get when you're laning against Kunkka, unless
Yeah.
you're range or something.
Yeah, and I don't think... Does 290 have it here? No, it just has boots, so a little bit of maneuverability, but you're right, he's taking a lot of damage to the Kunkka. They're trying to pump fake an Ice Blast, sorry, an Ice Path. They don't get it, but 290 is trying to threaten a little bit. Whenever there's not supports around, the Jakiro can make Zex Bingo a little bit more nervous, but so far Kunkka's done great in this lane. 21 for 5. Alchemist's actually not doing so bad himself. The Acid Spray doing a lot of the work to make sure that he maintains his last hits, so actually not such bad shape in this middle lane for wHut, I feel. And the levels still look okay as well. These supports down at about 3. Rubik, actually, YZB doing good work stacking and pulling this jungle. A little more than Ogura have managed to do simply because they've been rotating and getting kills a lot. So the Rubik getting good levels. We will have Spell Steal up fairly early. And do you think Spell Steal will make a difference?
Yeah, I absolutely do. It's like if you steal the Ghost Ship, you basically win a team fight. Like, that's not even a joke. Ghost Ship is that strong of an ability. It's really hard to steal Ghost Ship, though, because usually Kunkkas will follow it up with a Torrent or an X-Martial Spot as soon as they can.
Yeah.
But, like, Ghost Ship is probably one of the strongest level 1 ultimates. It hits for 350 damage in a really large AoE.
Right.
And then the Kunkka's run buff is just absolutely absurd.
It is, absolutely. Shauna spotting out 1, 2, 3 here. Here comes the Disruption, Soul Catcher. I feel like I've said this 3 times already because I have. Dragon Slave to follow and the Rocket Rush. Nice cogs, actually. Saves him for a little while, but no. The call down not even needed, neither is the Torrent, as he just gets clipped, and Will now 3-0-0 on the Shadow Demon. That's all the wards that money can buy right there.
That's not like all the it's basically he's on track for like a 30-minute Blink Dagger.
Well ahead of the Shadow Demon curve, no doubt about it.
Oh man, bad jokes all day. Poor supports. It's like hashtag support life.
Hashtag support life, absolutely. But honestly, Shadow Demon, I mean, if he keeps getting kills like this, he could graduate out of that support role sooner or later. Shadow Demon, a hero, not tremendously level dependent, so it's okay to just wander around getting kills and just keeping the other team down, because they honestly don't need the Demonic Purge that desperately just yet, so it's not critical to have it. It's good to just have him as this roaming force putting fear into the hearts of 290 and 123, and maybe eventually even ZZZ, although they haven't tried to launch an incursion all the way up there yet.
Yeah, one of the big problems though with the Demonic
Oh,
Purge
the
is-
boat comes in, 290. No! The boat will land right in the Alchemist's gnome face and take him down for a solo kill. Jakiro just watching, unable to save his friend. Sorry, I
And then
interrupted you there.
There's a rotation coming in from Ogura into
There
mid.
sure
They want to go on
is.
365 here as well.
2 smokes. They're going to come in behind the tier 1 tower. Disruptions there. Can they get the Soul Catcher away from the creeps? They do. There's the Torrent. There's the Light Strike. And that's... How is Shadow Demon getting all of these? He actually lives from tower damage as well. Now 4-0-0. And this is... At first I was like, it's okay maybe for wHut to take some of these early deaths. But this is starting to get seriously problematic, I feel.
Yeah, you don't know what Shadow Demon's going to do with all this gold other than buy more ward, but most importantly, he's really getting that nice level advantage, not only for himself, but also for Shanna, and unlike Shadow Demon, Lena's actually a very level-dependent support,
Yeah.
and she actually scales very well into a mid-game auto-attacking support as well. So if you can get some gold onto her as well, that's a huge win, basically, for Ogura. It's going to be very hard to come back from the Semikai potential that Ogura currently have.
Sure. I mean, I suspect that they're not quite getting as much farm as they are just participating in kills. So Lena, not exactly rich just yet. I think more likely we probably just see her do that support plus, where you get things like Scythe, which is a fantastic item for just about anybody. I've even seen, I think, Kurikai of Navi go Ethereal Blade. What? Here they go.
Oh.
They're going to try to get a kill. Fade Bolt coming through. There's the boat already. He's Unstable Concoction, but now the Coco's Rum will destroy a lot of attempts to actually deal damage to him. And Kunkka, he walks away from this just fine with the Ghost Ship ticking down. Of course, he'll take a lot of damage on the tail end, but it cannot be fatal. And so, this first gank attempt by wHut, deflected by good boat usage. Did they just not... Do you think that they just had no chance there, or did they not use their spells ideally?
Well, actually, if the Ghost Ship wasn't used that way, he would have died.
Sure.
Like, that's not even a question. And it says, like, mathematically speaking, because of the way Ghost Ship works, you actually have to burn through 200% of a person's health who has the effects of Ghost Ship on them to actually get the kill.
Absolutely.
And for Kunkka, that means you have to do 2,400 points worth of damage. You don't have that damage as early.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
At 9 minutes, it's very difficult. Actually, they're turning this around. Shani trapped inside the Ice Path and the Cogs. That's a quick kill. That'll get wHut onto the board. Will they attempt to chase further? They decide not to, actually. 290 peels off. Ooh, there's the hook shot. 1, 2, 3 maybe didn't get the memo that they weren't initiating. Because he gets X marks the spot into Torrent, and that'll be 6-1 for Ogura.
And Will gets the kill as well. He's just a last-hitting machine here.
He is. Kills, securing kills all the livelong day. And they get the tower as well. Ogura now, season command, I would say. And while Weaver is still farming, what does Weaver have to do to try to turn this?
Well, the problem with Weaver as a hero is that he's very mid-game oriented. You get enough armor, Weaver's advantage quickly falls off. So I would really like to see an early Courage Medallion, as well as a very early Desolator picked up as soon as possible on this Weaver to really kind of press a early mid-game advantage. It also gives them a lot of tower pushing, and if they do go for a Roshan, that's a lot of armor reduction as well.
Yeah,
so it's just a lot of damage, but instead it looks like he's going for the BKB. At least that's what an Ogre Club says, and that's probably not going to be a very good item this game for him.
BKB, of course, against Shadow Demon. Oops, I missed a kill in the middle. That's my fault. I'm gonna get made fun of for that. But yeah, 290. He drops again. He's just... Every time he even goes downstairs into the middle of the river, he's in extreme danger from this combo. I mean, once we saw the Shadow Demon Kunkka come into play, and then adding on the Lina, that stun combo is so hard to actually get away from. I mean, what does Alchemist really have that prevents him from getting stunned like that? Not a whole lot, and I think that's the thought behind this BKB for Weaver. He's seeing what's happening elsewhere on this map, and he doesn't want that to be his fate. But what this won't give him, and I think that's what you rightly pointed out, Alprez, is no damage on this.
Yeah, he gets like 16 damage or something out of it just because of the Mithril Hammer component.
Right.
Not 24 damage, which
boat.
is...
Jakiro taking quite a bit of damage, but 365 not quite dead yet. Yeah, you're right, the boat has been taken, and Ice Path just to dissuade them, and that's a nice steal for Rubik. He'll have that for 3 minutes that they can just respond to a boat with a boat of their own. That could be a big equalizer.
Yeah, one of the big things about the boat is that it's not very expensive unless you're Kunkka.
Right.
Because Kunkka has absolutely atrocious stat gains outside of his strength growth, but his int is like 1.5. It's absolutely awful, and it's very hard for him to actually sustain his mana spells because they're actually very expensive, but they have very short cooldowns. You're talking, for an ability of Ghost Ship's magnitude,
right,
a 60-second cooldown is simply not reasonable. That's actually absurdly low, considering all of the effects it brings to the field. It has a BKB piercing stun.
Right.
So
and great damage, obviously it doesn't pierce BKB, but it is fantastic damage. The smoke comes out. Will they catch 365? It looks like yes. There's the disruption. Soul Catcher to follow. Where's the Light Strike? Actually whiffs. So Jakiro, he gets vacked back. Going to try to path here. He's still alive, barely. And Gyrocopter rotates around to pick it off with the Rocket Barrage. They almost get the Courier. And now 1-2-3 is being chased. He needs to Cogs to cover his escape. Maybe not. He does walk away from this, but they get the Jakiro kill. 8-1 now for Ogura, and just playing this ganking style that was dictated by their lineup to the hilt. Every gank they've done has been successful, except for the first one on Alchemist.
Yeah, but even that could be declared as a pseudo-success, because they were able to just completely push 290 out of lane.
Hook shot, 1-2-3 coming back in here. He's got his battery assault up. It is max rank, but the defensive disruption. Clockwork can't even get it done.
No shit.
The call down coming down. Dreamy in a little bit of trouble. Telekinesis up. There's the vacuum in response. Ice Path to cover 290's attempt to escape, while ZZZ, he's finally ready to fight. He almost gets Shadow Demon. Maybe the bug eats him. Yes, it does. Now dueling DreamyU. DreamyU stays alive here. Ice Path, Shauna goes down. 2-for-2 trade for what? Honestly, not the worst thing in the world, but not what they need to come back either. Weaver making his debut, doing some work, but not able to clean up the Gyrocopter most critically.
Yeah, a little bit of a misplay there. He got way too close with Tishikuchi, but I don't think he had the damage to even go through the TP, regardless of whether or not he got stunned by that rocket.
Yeah.
But all in all, the fact that they were able to at least hold off that push on the tower and only trade 2-for-2, it could have been so much worse.
It could have been.
I feel wHut is still going to be very happy with that. And I do think it's in large part because of that great stolen ghost ship. It just kept the supports on wHut alive that much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And he now has Light Strike Array, another fantastic, good spell to steal. He obviously in a fight you're not just gonna leave the ghost ship if you need that little bit of extra oomph. So if he could steal the ship again, I think it'd be a big deal. But for now, having the stun is almost as good. ZZZ, meanwhile, they just have to prevent him from dying. This is gonna be bad. There is the Sentry Ward, the Laguna Blade. He uses time lapse. He's actually made it out. 1-2-3 hooks in. Shauna and Will are trapped, actually. Light Strike Array stolen. There's the telekinesis. Ghost Ship comes through. Only stuns 290. He has just been the victim of every single Ghost Ship in this game. I don't know how they're almost magnetized towards him. 1-2-3 with the defensive cogs, trying to cover their escape. Meanwhile, ZZZ wants to re-engage. YSY actually taking a lot of damage already. The Swarm is down on him. One more Shikuchi will do the trick. So will Ice Path. That stuns him down. Zex Bingo now lifted up. ZZZ, you cannot duel that Gyrocopter just yet, my friend. X marks the spot. There's the Torrent. Will the Weaver go down? Yes! One more Tidebringer hit will do the trick. Ice Path on the ground. 1-2-3. Unfortunately, he's in tower range. Zex Bingo. Oh, that was a good defensive disruption by Will returning here, and that's pretty much the only thing that saves Kunkka as he walks out of this fight. They also buy back the Darkseer, really to no avail, unfortunately, but that was overall, I would say, a good fight for Ogura. It seemed kind of dicey in the middle, but the fact that they managed to kill the Weaver, the main thing that was going well for wHut, is a big deal.
Yeah, not only that, but they also did it without losing any of their own big players, namely the Kunkka, Zex Bingo, as well as DreamyU, so that's fantastic. And that's going to be DreamyU's BKB. So, big item picked up already for Ogura, and that's going to be very painful. Yes, ZZZ also has one, but frankly, I think it's going to be a bigger pickup on Ogura. Namely because Ogura have a lot of, well, some BKB piercing abilities, the wall illusions, the ghost ship stun, as well as the demonic purge, whereas wHut has hook shot.
Hook shot, yeah. I mean, I think that it's a good pickup for Weaver as well, just to, the fundamental combo that Ogura have been just destroying wHut with. The disruption into Light Strike Array, into Torrent, all of that will be shut down by the BKB. Sure, there's a lot of BKB piercers as well, but I think it's just important for this Weaver to be able to stay alive, even regardless of how much damage he actually put out. There's the hook shot to chase. They catch Shauna this time. Another nice defensive disruption. Completely stuffs the unstable concoction. There's Clockwork on the ground. The boat comes through. Shauna's still alive. Laguna Blade to slay the Jakiro. Here comes the stolen ship, but it's a little bit late to save their team. 290. He is the ghost ship, helping a lot there. ZZZ with his newly activated BKB. There's the Torrent once again, and that'll mop up the Alchemist. 4-for-0 with Lina surviving again on the back of that ghost ship. This game is just a clinic in why Kunkka is sometimes just a ridiculous hero. That ghost ship has been doing work.
Yeah, no, ghost ship is just that ridiculous of a spell, and time and time again, not only does it have all of that, but they keep buffing the damage on it. And by they, I mean Ice Frog. It's been going up from like, it used to be like 200 at level 1, now it's 350.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, it's getting such, it doesn't even have that, like, the nice skill shot indicator that it does in Dota 1, and people still land those.
Right.
But, no, it's like, not only that, we do see that the Shadow Blade is up, as well as that DD, so this next cleave is going to just do a serious number onto what's lineup.
Yeah. It's very, very true. This Kunkka with that DD rune, something you absolutely need to watch out for. ZZZ taking quite a bit of damage already, actually. Forced to peel off, actually using the time-lapse. Going to try to put a little bit more harassment onto this tower. What would love to clear out this mid-tower? This would be, it's such an important staging point for Ogura, that if they can take it down, it's much harder for them to reinforce. But here come the reinforcements that they haven't been able to clear out. 3 TPs coming in from Ogura, and YZB and 123 are caught out a little bit. He can't use the cogs because it'll block the Rubik. There's the telekinesis. Rubik trying to walk his way on out of here. The rest of the team rotating over. Vacuum will miss. Nice defensive ice path. So what? Good job there, frankly, of being able to actually not get caught. They make their egress from the tier 1 tower, and it will be denied, but at least it's down.
Yeah, that's definitely a great way to use Ice Pad, but I feel that if this is why they picked up Jakiro, they should have just picked up Earthshaker instead. At least he contributes more to the team fights, because Macro Pirate is much more easily avoided than being dunked on. But all in all, definitely okay that what we're able to pretty much get out fairly unscathed. Yeah, they just lost 290 again, but that top tower needs to be denied. Are you serious? 290.
290 actually TPing out rather than denying a 9 HP tower. I mean, I like to be optimistic, but you really can't call that anything other than a mistake. He could have easily denied it and still gotten out. Maybe he just felt very, very paranoid that they'd gank him if he didn't leave immediately. But still, an easy tower kill that could have been a lot less gold for Ogura, the team that's ahead on gold in the first place. Meanwhile, they're going to try to respond with Roshan. They've got the acid spray to reduce Rosh's armor, but 290 actually taking a beating from this Roshan. This is just the sad fact of a mechanism-first alchemist that doesn't even have his mechanism.
Yeah, and this is not like a mechanism first, like you needed this mechanism like really 8 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And the fact that mid lane went so poorly for 290, keep in mind, he actually didn't die that much in the early laning phases. I think it took him like until the 10-minute mark before he had more than 2 deaths. It's just that once Ogura start grouping up,
yeah,
that's when it became a real problem for wHut, because 290 started getting behind from being forced out rather than being killed.
And he's just been killed every single time he's actually been in an engagement as well. And the larger engagements, 290 is dropping every time. Partially because the ghost ships have some sort of alchemist sensing field that's causing them to just run straight at him, but I mean, he's had a tough time. The flip side is Weaver. Weaver, I think, is the main bright spot for them. His net worth still chilling out where Kunkka and Gyrocopter are. I mean, the simple fact that Ogura have 2 farmed heroes and wHut have 1, I think, is a fact that has not escaped wHut. But the Weaver has Aegis, so combined with the BKB, this is a very, very survivable Weaver.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough to lock him down, mostly because, hey, we killed him once while he's back. Hey, we almost killed him. He time-lapsed. Damn it.
Right.
And thus is the life of hunting down someone who is as wily as Weaver. The mech is done, though, so at least they have that. That's something that's going to make these next fights a lot better, provided they all don't get hit by a ghost ship.
Provided Alchemist, doesn't get locked down before he even manages to use the mechanism and just die. Usually you'd say, well, we look at this team, Alchemist is the best mechanism candidate. It's a decent mana pool, good mana regen, and he's survivable, but really that hasn't been borne out so far in the fight, simply because he hasn't been surviving, but still a reasonable choice, and he had the headdress since forever ago, so no big surprise here. Meanwhile, Ogura heading down the bottom lane. They cleared out the top tier 2 very easily. I think they feel confident about this one too. Fortification actually used up for wHut? So do they plan to try to defend this? We're going to get a hook shot in from the north, it looks like, from 123, but he's got to start doing that pretty quick. Uses the rocket to try to spot it. This tower is still up. He is blocked by his teammates right now, but I think he wants it. We've seen 123 take some pretty speculative hook shots, but no, actually, does not end up going for it. He still has maybe one opportunity to catch somebody in the river here. They've got the vision, but no. wHut decide they just take the defense, take the fact that they warned Ogura off of this tower, and give themselves a little bit of a reprieve to farm the Weaver and the Alchemist some more.
Yeah, they really need to get some farm up on 290 as well as ZZZ, and I'm not sure what ZZZ's next option for his items are going to be. For me, the items that come to mind the most are probably going to be an MKB or a Desolator because you really need to put some damage on this Weaver right now. He hits okay, but okay isn't going to cut it at this point. He's really got to blow up, really, the Gyrocopter as well as the Kunkka.
Yeah. He has a lot resting on his little bug shoulders, and I'm not even sure bugs have shoulders.
Well, at least it appears to have shoulder. We'll just say that, like, the little bends.
He has joints, yeah.
Yeah, we'll say the joints, like the front joints that throw the little scarabs at people.
Right. I mean, bugs have great lifting strength, so it's not like he can't carry the team on his shoulders. Ants can carry, like, what, 100 times their body weight?
Yeah, but when you weigh, like, 2 grams...
That's fair.
I don't know. It's like if Weaver weighs like 2 grams, but
I'm sure he weighs more. He's pretty big for a bug. I mean, look at it. He's as big as Rubik. If you actually saw Weaver in real life, it would be like pants-crappingly terrifying.
yeah, almost as terrifying as Nyx, to be absolutely honest.
Okay,
like,
Nyx is way scarier.
But Nyx is also scary in games. Like, oh, I'm a nice little support, and
He
then
is.
he pops out of nowhere and instant kills you, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah, but then he talks, and you just start laughing, even though you're dying.
Oh, poor Nyx. But
I think you mean
that
Neeks.
Nyx. Oh, okay.
All right, diversion over. Analyze this game, Elpress.
That said, we do see that the Shadow Blade is almost done on Alchemist, and that's going to be a huge item. They really need to grab that on him, and it basically provides a huge insurance for the Unstable Concoction. You can charge up the Unstable Concoction, activate the Shadow Blade, and even if you start the Shadow Blade, and the Unstable Concoction is activated in the Phaeton of the Shadow Blade,
Yep.
even if you send yourself, you'll be completely invis for the entire duration. So that's actually a huge item to be picking up on Alchemist.
Absolutely. I think it's a great pickup. It's absolutely the right one for the situation. And the only thing is, he's progressing to it very slowly. While Kunkka, actually, his Daedalus is very, very, very close. He's got the Demon Edge in inventory and the Chrysalis sitting in the bank. I think this is actually backwards, but I'll allow it.
I actually really like this. We saw that instead of snacking Ancient Camps, DreamYu is actually grabbing the Pack Leader, the Alpha Wolf, for that very less damage aura.
That's really nice. It almost dies there, unfortunately, but they do keep it around.
I'm going to go ahead and plug my favorite item, Vlad's. I really want Ogur to pick up one. Mostly, it's going to counteract the Acid Spray very well. It's going to be a very cheap counter, and, again, more damage.
Who do you think takes a Darkseer, I guess?
If not Darkseer, they can always put it on Kunkka, but Kunkka is farming bigger items. So
exactly, and he's pretty big, honestly. His net worth is... It's still these 3 heroes clinched at the top of the net worth. The Gyrocopter, Kunkka, and Weaver are all very, very close to each other. So yeah, honestly, I agree with you, Alprez. I think Vlad's is amazing now, because even if you get a Cuirass later, they stack with each other, so... Meanwhile, what? They want to smoke. They want to try to get a kill, as this game has gotten a little more static than they'd like, considering I'm sure they know the fact that the enemy has 2 heroes farming for every one of theirs, and there's YSY actually blinking away. Surge, and yeah, he gets away from trouble while also revealing the entirety of the smoke gank. Unfortunate for what, as they spent a lot of time trying to get that. I think that's the Aegis expiring on Weaver in just a few seconds as well. He gets his Deso, though, so yeah.
So he does go for the Desolator. That's going to greatly improve their ability to tower push. It's going to be a total of 12 armor reduction in tandem with the Acid Spray. So actually it's going to be huge. It's going to reduce Gyrocopter down to 6 and bring Kunkka down to the negative value. So it's going to be very easy to apply physical damage to the Kunkka. That said, when you have the effective 50% damage reduction from Ghost Ship, what can you really do?
Right. Weaver definitely will run into the issue of being able to do that. Alright, so they're on the tier 2 mid now. Weaver throwing out the Swarm. There's Shadow Demon, however. Do they actually get the Torrent here? A Sentry is already on the ground. Actually, Will taking a tremendous amount of damage to ZZZ, though, without the boat. Mechanism to try to save him. The Swarm still actually pecking away at the Shadow Demon. There's the BKB. ZZZ wants to engage on a permanent basis. He's charging right in, but he's rebuffed. He's immediately getting shot down so quickly. He's already used the time-lapse. Weaver on the ground. This is a fight that wHut can no longer afford to take. YSY brought down by YSB, but they trade 2 for 2 with the Weaver down. Not what wHut want. They do not want to lose this Weaver when he is their main farmer.
Yeah, who got the gem? Who picks up the gem? It was retrieved by Shauna, so that's still very, very important. We do see 290 hiding in the trees here, and yep, there he goes, charging it up.
Yeah, he's going to come in. Do they know about the Shadow Blade? There's the hook shot. They are going to Cogs DreamyYu in. Nice ice path, but the boat response also huge. The gyrocopter finally goes down, and actually they only lose the Jakiro, so an okay trade in the end. I thought the boat might do a bigger job, but it didn't quite stun anybody other than the Jakiro.
Yeah, even though that they didn't get the Jakiro, they ended up wasting a lot of what's time. It took them like a good 2 or 3 seconds long to take care of Gyrocopter, and I think Gyrocopter was able to use that time to pick up at least some items, or maybe not. I'm not exactly sure anymore. But it does look like he's going to be progressing quite nicely towards that MKB. And again, it's getting to the point where Ogura putting out a lot of damage, and it's not like a lot of damage to one target. It's a lot of damage literally to everybody. Like their effective radius is actually 1,000 and 1,200. It's ridiculous. That's how large of the attack range Kunkka and Gyrocopter have.
Yeah. And I mean, they can, if somebody gets taken to about 40%, like a support by that cleave combination, they can then just add Laguna Blade onto it to finish it off. And Rubik doesn't quite have the levels yet for those ranks of Nullfield to prevent that Lina from being able to just destroy people. And I can't blame him. I don't think ranking Nullfield earlier would have been the right choice here, simply because, I mean, it doesn't do that much against Kunkka and Gyrocopter, frankly, but still, they're going to want it now, because Lina's been leveling pretty well. She's level 11. Actually, all the supports have been leveling well. Only is the Shadow Demon really behind, and as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't really matter to get your Shadow Demon levels past a certain point. He already reaches close to max effectiveness at a fairly low level relative to a lot of other supports.
Yeah, it's really, you need level 1 Purge, and that's literally it. You can actually, like, forego leveling up Purge at later points, literally because it only improves the damage, and as a support, that's really... Oh, Shauna's dead.
ZZZ does a very respectable amount of damage. Here's the unfortunate thing. The X marks the spot, and he has to BKB to get away from this. That's unfortunate. Doesn't quite even manage... I've been saying unfortunate all day for some reason. I don't usually use that phrase that much, but it's been...
Unfortunately?
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's been cropping up in my lexicon more often than I'd like. So no Lina kill, forced to use his 8-second BKB charge, now ticking down to 7. I like to make a note of this, because now that it bottoms out at 4, BKB, if you get early as this Weaver did, I mean, eventually it just loses a dramatic percentage of its effectiveness.
Oh, Ogura know this. They're going for the roast that's about to respawn, and it's going to be tough for wHut to contest this. They do have the Ats-3, which is great area denial. They also have the Ice Path and Macropyre. So if anytime they're going to win this fight, it's going to be in the Roche Pit, where everyone's in a really tight, controlled corridor. But they have no vision.
I mean, Jakiro, Clockwork, Alchemist, all these heroes extremely effective in a confined area. The only question is, can they do it? And Ogura, yeah, you see them not feeling quite confident enough to do that. Maybe confident enough to get a gank, though. I mean, YSY, he's got Blink. They have such good ability to initiate and then follow that up with tremendous damage that they don't necessarily need the Roshan. And DreamyYu, 3,200, if they could get the Roche and put the Aegis on this Gyrocopter... I'm gonna let you say it.
You're actually suggesting it. Okay, well, a Rapier would be hilarious. But I saw a game earlier today where the Rapier almost cost them the match.
I casted a game where the Rapier literally did cost them the match.
I didn't get to watch all the TPL games, but I got to hear a very funny thing involving Quantic going full EG. But
they did. It was actually a pretty epic series. But let's move on to this. The Macropyre is down. A fight already sort of half breaking out. But did wHut use their Macropyre too early? It's such an important tool for that Roche Pit. And now they don't have it. It's not the longest cooldown ultimate. It will be up in 45 seconds. But Ogura, they are Shadow Bladed up on the Kunkka. Here comes the homing missile on Weaver. Will he Shikuchi out? He gets hit. They saw him. They had the gem. And that's a dead Weaver. No buyback? Yes, buyback. And he may have to use it, or they have to just give up Roshan right here, right now. What an unfortunate death. That gem has been giving wHut absolute conniptions.
Yeah, there is just nothing you can do about it, especially with that Shadow Blade pickup on 290, as well as the fact that Weaver is very dependent on Shikushi to get in and out of fights. Not being able to really use your invis that effectively basically puts you down very heavily. It's like how Riki is effectively a hero with 3 abilities because his last one is invis.
Right.
And Weaver's almost in the same boat, except, you know, Shikuchi also lets you get very close as well, which is very important for him because he doesn't otherwise put out a lot of damage due to his rather limited attack range.
Another fortification. Oh, wow, what a torrent. Very nicely placed. There's the Demonic Purge. What? 290. There's the ship. The Macropyre down again. Shauna actually in a bit of trouble. Another nice defensive disruption. And now Gyrocopter seeking maybe to disengage. Shauna down. 1-2-3, however, takes the fall. He has trapped Zex Bingo. And actually ZZZ now doing a lot of work. But the torrent to respond, and DreamyU still alive. Does get stunned by Unstable Concoction. And actually, what looked to be cleaning this up? All 5 down. Kunkka having to buy back. And Weaver there for once unanswered, for once not picked off, and able to deal a tremendous amount of damage. Even 290 stayed alive. And that's honestly a light of hope for wHut there. They won that fight and they just didn't do it. They won it convincingly. Nice torrent. Oh, here comes boat. It doesn't land on anybody.
Well, it hit YZB, but that's literally the least of their concerns, landing it on YZB of all heroes. But that was a fantastic fight for wHut. Just ZZZ putting out so much damage with that early Desolator, and basically it was coming down to armor reduction. With the Swarm Bugs, with the Desolator, and the Acid Spray, you're looking at up to like 30 armor reduction over a very short period of time. And this Rosh is going down. Like, there's nothing that Ogura can do now. It's just all the armor reduction makes us just way too quick.
And now with Cuirass, is this almost overkill on the armor reduction? They're going to have so much negative armor on Ogura. And I can't blame wHut for this too much, because honestly, I agree with you. The negative armor was a huge, huge deal there. Nice torrent right into the middle of the pit there. But Weaver nonetheless takes the second Aegis, and without access to Roshan, even if Gyrocopter was pondering the rapier, it would be foolhardy to take it. He actually just picks up the MKB, and it's just, at this point, these two teams are just going to be throwing haymakers at each other. They both deal so much damage.
Yeah, I think what's going to be the big determining factor in these fights is what makes the bigger difference. The single target damage of the Weaver, or just the AoE combination
and boats
from Gyrocopter and Kunkka.
Boats are going to be a huge deal. If Kunkka gets his boat on his entire team early, that means that wHut need double the damage. And I can't say that even with their negative armor they can provide double the damage that Ogura can. But if Rubik steals it, all of a sudden the scales tip back to even. And if they can pick off the Kunkka and the Lina early and get the stolen ghost ship, well then, wHut are in business.
Yeah, and it's very important to consider that it is a triggered ability, so even if Weaver time lapses, he still has the ghost ship buff on him. So it's actually a very big steal to have, and the AC is going to be huge.
Yeah.
That's not always a more negative armor reduction, but it's also a positive armor reduction.
Great point.
I do feel like, and here it is, I do feel like Alchemist should pick up a Vlad's following this up to reduce the damage of Gyrocopter by a substantial amount. Not so much Kunkka, because Cleave is magical, crazy stuff that ignores armor. Yeah. But it will reduce Gyrocopter's damage rather substantially.
I actually completely agree. I think the Vlad's Cuirass combo is almost core these days, and there's nobody else on this team that's going to be able to afford it. Clockwork most likely going to try to get his BKB as soon as possible. He has been dying, I think, a little earlier than he'd like in these fights, and I think he feels that BKB would help him there. I'm actually not sure how much it would, but at least the Laguna Blade, he could at least not just die immediately to that.
Yeah, it's the damage from battery assault's really that great, so it's really hard to not justify at least living long enough to try to get that full duration off.
Sure. But,
you know, as long as he can cause enough disruption with the hookshot and the power cogs, that's really the full extent of what 1-2-3 really needs to accomplish.
Yeah.
As a Clockwork.
And Alprez, I'm looking at the net worth graph, and after 36 minutes, Alchemist is finally caught up. He's now at where Kunkka's at. Now, Grievel's Greed undoubtedly helped quite a bit with that Clockwork with the Blade Mail. I was going to say I would actually like this more than the BKB first, because I feel like Blade Mail responds to Kunkka and Gyrocopter in very effective ways. So this, honestly, I feel like wHut are, if not completely stable, at least a lot more stable than they were.
Yeah, I completely agree, but one of the big problems for wHut as a lineup is that because of the way Alchemist is building, they lack a lot of secondary damage sources. Their only major damage is going to come out of ZZZ on the Weaver. 290 will contribute a little bit with his Unstable Concoction, which, due to the physical damage, will actually hit like an absolute truck.
It will, on that reduced armor. It's huge.
But, you know, it's like 365, he's not been contributing a lot with the Macropyres.
He hasn't, but we'll see in this fight that's coming up. They're coming from two angles. There's the Unstable Concoction and wHut. They're fleeing. The Unstable Concoction will hit on Will. Here comes the boat, though. Here come big stuns. The call down landing. And wHut are already so freaking low. 1, 2, 3 using the Blade Mail. But here's ZZZ, still pretty full because he just used Time Lapse, trying to pick off Zex Bingo. There's the stun coming out from 290. He attempts to disengage. Still just one down on each side. Miraculously enough, Kunkka and Gyrocopter in those waning moments of the Ghost Ship having to leave, and you could just see that fight would have been a disaster for Ogura if not for the early Ghost Ship. But with the Ghost Ship, all they lose is a tower and they trade 1 for 1. Ghost Ship saving lives. OP ability. Volvo, please fix.
Volvo? Yeah, no, Ghost Ship is absolutely absurd, and the best part about Ghost Ship is it's already back off cooldown. It's a 40-second cooldown. That's how ridiculous it is. It's like
really
people
is.
complain that Naga Siren's ulti feels like it has too short of a cooldown. Well, Kunkka's is shorter and it can have just as much impact.
Absolutely. So yeah, but nonetheless, that I think that fight showed the power of wHut in some respects. If they could maybe get a perfect Ice Path and Unstable Concoction, not on Gyrocopter, but on Kunkka. Oh, but here's something that'll stymie that effort. Kunkka finishing, just making a full BKB right there.
Yeah, that's going to be very difficult for wHut to deal with. Honestly, we've gotten to the point where if Ogura feel like they're behind, they're not. So they shouldn't, but they could build a Rapier on Kunkka or Gyrocopter and go for those big team wiping crits. But
yeah, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, they're just a little bit too far ahead to really warrant that as an item build.
I think Satanic on Gyro wouldn't be completely ill-advised.
Oh, what?
Oh, where the hell did that happen?
He got solo kill by ZZZ.
Wow, that was a quick kill. That's totally my bad. It is, of course, 5 a.m. here. I apologize for missing that kill, but there was a Gyrocopter, and then all of a sudden there wasn't. That's going to inform what he tries to build, I think. And meanwhile, Weaver, I really like this, going towards his heart. That'll give him the... Actually finishes it right now with that kill, giving him the last little jolt of gold. 1,400 on top of this, and now after heart, he can just go max damage now. X marks the spot. There's the torrent. There's the ship. They lock down 290 completely. He may drop quickly. Yes, he's down. Here comes the stolen ship. Stuns YSY, but not quite enough here. The Blink Dagger. He's going to have to use it very, very quickly. No, YZB unable to. The torrent, the Laguna Blade. ZZZ, however, does manage to slay one. He wants to go for Shauna. The Ghost Scepter in progress. ZZZ still chasing. He gets Shauna. wHut, meanwhile, tries to enter the fray, but this Gyrocopter can't really duel the Weaver. Weaver needs to use time lapse. He didn't time lapse. No time lapse used. That's a critical error. He thought he could duel, and the entrance of the Kunkka proved him so painfully wrong. And losing the Weaver again, wHut, unfortunately, almost turning that fight. If he uses the time-lapse, I think he can duel that out, but unfortunately he doesn't. X marks the spot on 1, 2, 3. 296 to re-engage, but wHut already in BKB form. 1, 2, 3, he hook shots. Have they shut down the Gyrocopter? A trade for Clockwork, not a worthy trade. Nice decision by 290 to come back, and this gem has exchanged hands 5 times, 6 times, now on the Alchemist and 1 on the Kunkka.
I think, let me put it, I think it was it was like a 5-for-4 trade in favor of Ogura, but frankly, wHut's going to be a lot happier with that, the fact that they're even able to make trades like that happen while they're behind.
Yeah.
So it's still big, and especially because they're going to be able to use this time again to get at least some more items onto 290. And again, I would really love to see the Vlads. It's a very nice damage bonus aura, as well as giving a little bit of lifesteal and sustain to 290, as well as that great 5 armor aura. And it's going to reduce the damage of Gyrocopter pretty substantially. We did see that there is already a Ghost Scepter up on Shauna, and that is huge, because it's going to basically completely nullify the damage that Weaver is capable of putting out, and I would really like to see that being picked up by Rubik and Jakiro as well.
And Darkseer, for that matter, even. I think the Ghost Scepters are a huge deal. I would love the Vlads. I agree with you completely, Alprez. I think they're so close to just taking these team fights convincingly. And Vlad's giving everybody armor, and a little bit of damage to the Alchemist might be just the ticket for them to get into this. Honestly, I think BKB for Alchemist also a good idea. We may see him make that instead. He's getting shut out of these fights early by that whole Shadow Demon Lina nonsense, and so that might be nice for him. Unfortunately, it's like the least carry-ish option that he could go for, so that's the big downside. Jakiro, by the way, going for Rod of Aoi 2000. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't really see the point of it in this particular matchup. Like, you Slow gyrocopter?
Well, they want these initiations, especially from very long range. The Weaver synchronizes extremely well with Atos when he's chasing a fleeing target.
Well, I completely agree, but Weaver also will chase a target regardless.
That's
That's what
absolutely
he
true.
does.
Yeah, yeah. I do like the
Like,
clockwork building Halberd, though. That wHut is, as of that fight, down to 4 seconds of BKB. So immediately following that, you can just Halberd him. He might still have flak shots to send out at that point.
yeah, that's actually absolutely huge. Being able to get that halberd just to shut him out. And once the BKB drops and he gets halberded, he's not doing anything, or Dreamy's not doing anything, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Not only that, they can also drop it on Kunkka before the Tidebringer happens, although that's very hard to call for. But again, having that blade mail is actually going to be a nightmare for Kunkka and Gyrocopter because they specialize in AoE damage, but they can't control who they hit.
Right.
So
Especially
Clock
for
will
Gyro.
literally just
Because Kunkka still has 9 seconds of BKB that will, of course, block even the pure damage from the blade mail, but I think you're totally right. And now Kunkka looks to be building Quiras. I think YSY has wanted the Shivas forever and just hasn't quite been able to get there. At this point, I would just keep the plate mail and make Ghost Scepter, frankly. I think it'll do more work than the Shivas will.
Yeah, I do think it would. The attack speed slow is always nice, though. It's going to
true.
greatly reduce the damage output and the attack speed aura from Assault Cuirass.
That's a good point. They want to catch Weaver. Will ZZZ get caught? There is a Sentry Ward, a friendly Sentry Ward here for wHut, as well as a friendly Observer, but he's got to be careful. If they lose Weaver here, that would be so difficult for them. That would pose... They can't lose the Weaver any more than they already do. He just now reached the top of the net worth charts. They want this Weaver to carry this game. They want him to get more and more damage, and if he loses this big stack of unreliable gold, or a decent chunk of it, it doesn't look like they peel off. Ogura, they're still in smoke form. They want to maybe charge into either the Ancients or the area around the Roche Pit. wHut hanging out here as well? Alchemist and Shadowblade. He actually heads into the pit. Is this ill-timed? I think they've spotted him. They've got the gem. 290. He did make the BKB. He uses it. Now he's dueling Dreamy. The Purge is already up on the Alchemist, but this is a 10-second BKB. There's the call down. Nice Ice Path. The Macropyre to follow. Here comes the boat. Will stun 365, but 290 somehow still in the fight. Actually surviving for a decently long time. Darkseer on the ground. 2 for 2 trade already. 1, 2, 3. He's milking that blade mail for all it's worth, and wHut is on the ground. Here they go. Only Shauna left, and somewhere the Kunko has already fled out of the fight. Nice Ghost Scepter use by Shauna, but they just lost both gems. And that might be the third Roshan if wHut won it.
Yeah, and if they want it, it's going to probably go to the Alchemist this time, and that's going to be a very...
It's a cheese, too.
Yeah, cheese as well. I don't know. Basically, ZZZ is reaching 6 slot levels of gold, and he almost has enough for the MKB, which I would imagine is his next pickup. But it's like, once you get that item, you got to sell your boots, and you got to build boots of travel so you can just get that one more slot.
Yeah, honestly, wHut? They're looking better and better. They had such a rough early game, Elprez. They were down 7-1 at one point, 8-1. And now they're looking, even with the Ghost Ship, they look like they can put out more damage than Ogura can.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that ZZZ is scaling so well this late. Normally, you don't expect this from a Weaver, mostly because, again, because of the nature of Geminated attack, armor is just a nightmare for Weaver to deal with. So, I'm actually very surprised, and it's getting to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if Ogura start taking desperate measures, like, again, you have the Rapier option, and if they start feeling any more behind, I feel like they really do need to pick that up.
Yeah. There we go, the Aegis and Cheese on the ground. They actually put the Aegis on the Weaver again, so I assume that means it's going to be Cheese for 290. He does have a much longer BKB, so I think that's the logic here. Alchemist still is able to sort of not get locked down, so he'll be able to more likely use the Cheese than if Weaver gets completely locked accidentally. So it's Aegis for Weaver, finishes his MKB. He is now 6 slotted but for the Aegis. So once the Aegis goes down, he can make another item, but until then, this is a maxed Weaver. And this is an Alchemist who's starting to get items as well. I mean, keep in mind, he can eventually ditch this mechanism. It doesn't scale that well into the 60-70 minute mark when your heroes are just getting one-shot potentially by Kunkka. And we talked about the Desperapier. I feel like they feel a lot more Despera than they did 10 minutes ago, Ogura.
I can't tell if that was supposed to be a pun.
It is a pun.
It's a pun?
I heard it
Alright,
from a Twitch viewer. Fippadop Gaming invented that. I think it's a great pun, frankly.
Despera. Okay, well...
Desperapier? Because you build a rapier when you're desperate?
Desperapier?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree that they really need some way of putting out some more damage. And honestly, the best case scenario is get that rapier. When you're playing from behind, it's basically, you got nothing to lose. Go for it. Right?
And they are buying out, but it's for stuff like Cuirass. It's for stuff like Satanic. I can't blame the decision to get the Cuirass. They kind of need to tip the armor fight back. That's what I think is making the huge difference. It's this constant acid spray desolator. I mean, as you rightly mentioned, I wish they had a medallion, too.
If they had a Vlad's, this would be less of a problem. Oh my god.
ZZZ does take a lot of damage. Yeah, he just time-lapses on out of here. That was a decent amount of harassment. I mean, MKB, of course, no longer lets you siege from low ground, which is... I don't honestly know why they made that change. I was happy with that as a MKB feature, but that's fine.
You know, it's like it's a parody update.
Yeah.
Might not be intended, but it definitely worked out better that way. It really hurts heroes like Mirana.
Yep.
Oh my god, ZZZ just takes so much damage.
Even with Heart, this Weaver cannot stand to this just barrage of Flak Cannon plus Kunkka Tidebringer very quickly. But that said, they can do this. I mean, he's got his time-lapse is up in 3 seconds again. So he can just keep chipping away at this tower, and as long as he doesn't randomly... Actually, 290 looks to be able to... Oh, actually, Wisewire on the low ground. Here comes the boat. Who's it going to hit? It hits Jakiro. Already dead. ZZZ, however, dueling. Darkseer on the ground. ZZZ, he has to time-lapse. He does. Here comes the return boat. ZX Bingo. He's being chased back into space. Dreamy, you will go down as well. It's too much damage from the Weaver. ZZZ bringing almost everyone down. He uses the BKB. Will he get brought out by tower damage? Not quite. He's still alive, even if just barely. And they've picked off 4 for 1 in their high ground attempt. Weaver's got this heart. He's going to regen very quickly. And what's the status of buyback for OguraYui? Almost nothing. In fact, nothing. The only buybacks are available for wHut and Elpress. I think they've done it. I think they've come back from an absolutely calamitous start. Here comes a nice torrent from Kunkka. He does have this boat. This could be a big deal. It stuns 1, 2, 3. It stuns ZZZ. But here comes 290. He's going to throw the unstable concoction. The return boat doesn't... Did it land? It did land.
Yeah, it landed.
And Zex Bingo, the last to drop. No buyback. And wHut? Take... I believe, if I'm not getting too far ahead of myself, but they take the first game of this series in Group D, RedBull ECL 2013. I gotta say, Alprez, I am so gratified that we finally have a close game in this.
Yeah, if it's not the game right now, they're at least getting 2, maybe even this third set of racks while Kunkka's still down. There's not really much Ogura can do, and it really just... I cannot believe that this happened the way it did. I think, yeah, it was exactly that. It come down to the armor reduction strat, and
it did. It really did.
It's just so strong. Armor reduction.
And you called it. I mean, you were like, he should build Dezo, and I was like, ah. And then he builds Dezo, and it's like, oh my god, this is so good.
Oh my god, why do I have negative 20 armor?
Right. With the acid spray combo, I mean, Alchemist maxed acid spray first, and there it is. G. Just the 1G.
Game. It was a game.
It was a game. I think it was a good game, Elprez. I think this was quite the way to start.
But yeah, I completely agree. It's like the total armor reduction came down to like 17.
God, that's a lot.
And that's not even counting the swarm armor reduction.
Yeah.
So it was good. I cannot believe that wHut were able to clinch this one out. Basically, it was that close.
Yeah, it seemed like Ogura were just on the pinnacle. They were just on the tipping point of getting to that high ground, and they didn't quite push into it. And wHut stabilized, and the Weaver got scarier and scarier. He kept getting locked down, but honestly, I think the BKB pickup was really good too. That's one thing that we were discussing during the game, and it really saved him and kept him. It sort of dissuaded Ogura from trying to kill the Weaver, and the longer he stayed up, the more havoc he was able to wreak in those later team fights. What a beginning, and I'm glad that it's best of 3, because now we will see these teams go up against each other again in just a few minutes. Don't go away, folks. RedBull ECL 2013. Your casters are Vikramond and El Presidente, and we will join you in just a couple minutes.